So I get asked a lot as a software development engineer who's been doing this for quite a while, what it actually takes for a company to keep its best people. And with all the churn going on right now with the pandemic, as people are switching jobs and finding better jobs and looking for better jobs, um, it's important to understand that that's happening on every single job right now. There is actively people in every walk of life looking for a better deal. We've all had a hard last couple of years, and when you really get down to it, people just want more anyway. And so, here are some things that I have commonly found to be often cited issues that actively, directly reflect people's ability or desire to move on when they work in tech. Uh, First anti-pattern will be the PTO is unlimited, but actually taking it is considered a negative socially. You get this back and get this kind of feedback in a different way every time at every company, but basically what it amounts to is there's generally some pushback or some, oh really, you're off, you're taking time, really, are you sure, sort of discussions that happen. And typically what that means is they don't want you to take the time because they don't want to lose the productivity. There's something going on at the office, at the company, etc., and they want you in the office. But they offered this to you and you accepted it and they have to give it to you, but they don't really want you to take it. And that's the general impression that you get. And so this alone by itself is enough to make a top tier software developer just move on because we like the idea of being told unlimited vacation and we're not going to actually use it unlimited. I mean, a lot of people think unlimited and they think, oh, I'll just take vacation now forever. But we all know that's not how it works. Uh, the important thing is to be responsible and to be mature and use those resources wisely. So if you have been working a while and you decide you need a day off because of your kids or your taxes or whatever, you should be allowed to take that day without feeling guilt or shame because the people above you are trying to gaslight you into feeling bad because you decided to take a benefit that they offered you and you accepted. So that alone can make people really, really interested in just going away. Another one is the fact that PTO isn't self service in some way. Um, Basically, what it comes down to is if somebody has to do more than tell their manager they want the time off, or, optionally and in a better way, just go to a website and log it. And then that website sends an email to their manager and gets confirmation and does all that asynchronously. Uh, if it's too much of a hassle to ask for time off because you've been working overtime and you want some PTO, it's just an issue. And you don't really want to be in that situation. So people will actively leave companies because they were offered a role at a company where PTO was self service and they can click a button or something. And so I highly suggest that you keep your PTO request process as light as possible. The only people that should be involved is the person's direct manager and maybe an HR system or two. But basically, keep it light, keep it clean, and make sure that the use case is happy path. Another thing is taking PTO and it's approved and everything's great, but you have to be in the office or you have to be in a meeting during your vacation. These are the things that absolutely destroy a company's credibility because if they can't actually do resource allocation enough to allow somebody to, for example, enjoy their wedding that they scheduled a year ago without a meeting request for a sudden big client, then maybe they're not so good at their job and maybe that person feels unsafe and needs to move on. And that's generally what happens. Um, Another thing I found is interesting is that at some companies, the leadership might be given different medical benefit options than the rest of the team. And I haven't seen that very often, but I have seen it once. And so I'm mentioning it here because when the team found out about that, half of them quit that day. Um, and that was just a matter of, you know, them versus us. And it got to a point where the teams realized that leadership wasn't looking out for them. And there was a wall there. And so, because of that, leadership lost trust in the team, and the team decided to go elsewhere. Um, let's see. Another issue that happens is a somebody in the C level who thinks they're smarter than they might be, or maybe they think they have more knowledge or technical expertise than they might actually have compared to, for example, one of their more senior technical people, comes in at an inopportune time and completely creates chaos with randomized requests or mandates, such as, let's say a team has been working on sprints for a project for a while because they're using the agile methodology. And with that in mind, they've got maybe, let's just say, a 2-week sprint, right? If a C-level executive comes in at the last week of a 2-week sprint in the middle of it on a Wednesday and dramatically changes all of the technical requirements, then that sprint's going to fail and you're going to piss off your developers. And they're going to look for other places, flat out. I've seen that happen many times, including recently. So, with that in mind, you have to be aware that if you are a technical leader, then you need to be a leader. You need to communicate. You need to make sure that you trust your people. And you also need to make sure that because you hired them for a reason, that you understand that you hired them for a reason. And that if they have expertise or skills that you don't, you should think about that before you try to correct them or otherwise create a situation where you are wrong and they have data to back it up, but you don't listen because that will create a very large problem and a very large lack of trust in your team. And over time, if you lose enough people on your team, any team in technology that has good senior people on it, you have to understand that it's not just about those senior people, it's about their tribal knowledge. A lot of organizations are very good at documenting tribal knowledge, and they're very good at making sure that there's continuity in place for new team members and an onboard process and all that fun stuff. But even with all of that, the knowledge in that dev's head when it leaves with them, it can't be gotten back. There are things there that are just never documented because they're so common, things that people don't think of because we all deal with them. And so, as a result of that, in any organization, you are going to have the best results if you keep your people happy and keep them willing to educate you on the business versus you making demands of them and, you know, changing their requirements at the last second. Um, so, another thing that I would also add to this as a kind of a last thing is buying hardware for new employees and technology companies without asking them what works for them for their productivity or accessibility. You see this a lot, especially this year with the release of the new Apple M1. Uh, M1 sounds like a great piece of hardware. It's all Apple silicone, so it's supposed to be faster, different memory access, things like that. But that's actually a problem. You see, it's screen locked to one monitor. And a lot of devs, especially if you need accessibility, require multiple monitors. I myself have 3 monitors here in front of me, not to mention the row above it of 1, 2, 3 above. So I technically have 6 here, a laptop there, and another laptop over there that I can all control with one mouse and keyboard. And so the end result is that if you make assumptions about their hardware setup or how they work, you are not only wasting money, you're possibly wasting money buying hardware that they're not going to use or could actively discriminate against them if they have an accessibility issue. And so, my recommendation right now, as of 10/27/2021, is to not buy an Apple M1 at all because they're screen locked. They have, let's just say, hardware issues. And for a while there, they were not well supported, even on homebrew. Um, and so, it's better now, but I personally don't like the M1, so I'm going to, probably end up being on that hill. But the end result is that you need to think deeper about your entire process with your team. If you're providing leadership and you're providing support, then provide support. Provide support to them as a person, not just as an employee. Provide leadership and make sure that you provide PTO and other benefits that everybody's on the same page. And make sure that if somebody comes to you with a problem and they say, "Look, I'm hurting. Somebody in my family died. I have a medical appointment. I need to do my taxes. I've got a thing and I have to take some time off to go deal with it because it's family drama," whatever. If somebody who is an otherwise good worker comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to use the benefit that you've already told me I'm allowed to have and can use at any time," you should let them. And if you don't, you'll probably lose them as an employee at some point.